Good day and welcome back to Scriptures Unlocked. We are now on to Genesis chapter 34, where we'll be looking at Dinah's abduction and defilement. So this presentation will outline the abduction and sexual assault of Dinah, Jacob's daughter, by Shechem, the prince of the Hivites. After his dastardly act, Shechem approached Jacob with a proposition to marry Dinah, whom he violated. And this is what we are told in Genesis 34, verse 1 to 3. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. And his soul clave unto Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the damsel and spake kindly unto the damsel. And this is after what he did. And Shechem, the son of Hamor, came to his father, saying, Get me this damsel to wife. So this story starts by telling us that Dinah made the unwise decision to go into the city unsupervised. And by putting herself in that situation, she was kidnapped and sexually assaulted. It must be noted, viewers, that the Canaanites were sexually depraved individuals. And this can clearly be seen by reading Leviticus chapter 18 in its entirety. And they lived in a very immoral society. So by going out unchaperoned, Dinah made a very big mistake, because in that culture, unmarried women who were often virgins did not go out in public alone for obvious reasons, as Dinah later found out. So unmarried women were usually accompanied by a male protector or by older married women. So for Dinah to venture out in public alone was like blood in the water for the male sharks in this promiscuous and liberal society. So Shechem took advantage of an unchaperoned Dinah when he kidnapped and sexually assaulted her. And notice what we are told in verse 2 again. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw Dinah, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. And that word lay here is often used in this context in a sexual way. The Hebrew word for take, which can be used in many contexts, is lakak. And in this context, it simply means to take by force or to seize. And that's what Shechem did to Dinah. He seized her. He grabbed a hold of her and he assaulted her. The King James Version translates lakak, which is Strong's H3947, in a number of ways. It means to take, to get, fetch, lay hold of, seize. It can also mean to take a wife. It means to snatch. All these meanings that you can see on screen. Look at number 8. It means to take, to capture, or to seize. And that's precisely what Shechem did to Dinah. Notice as well on screen you are seeing here the poal meaning of this word. It means to be taken captive. And that's what happened to Dinah. Shechem accosted her, kidnapped her, abducted her, and held her as a captive after he had sexually assaulted her. So she was being kept in Shechem's home after what he did to her. The Hebrew word translated as lay with her is the Hebrew word shakav. And it is used to refer to sleeping or to lie down. But in this context, it simply means to lie with someone sexually. The King James Version translates shakav 212 times, and it is Strong's H7901. It is translated as lie 106 times, sleep 48 times, lie down 43 times, and so forth. But number 3 here in the outline of biblical usage means to lie as it relates to having sexual relations or to be lain with in a sexual way. So Shechem not only abducted Dinah, but he also assaulted her in a sexual way, which resulted in Jacob's daughter being defiled. And then he had the temerity to approach her father, proposing to marry her after he had clearly put the quote-unquote cart before the horse. So notice what happened in Genesis 34, verse 5. And Jacob heard that he, Shechem, had defiled Dinah, his daughter. Now his sons were with his cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they were come. So Jacob heard some way, somehow, it wasn't from Dinah. Dinah was still being held captive in Shechem's house. So Jacob heard what Shechem had done to his daughter. but he waited until all his sons came home from the field to inform them of the situation concerning their sister. The Hebrew word translated as defiled is the Hebrew word tameh. It occurs 161 times in the Hebrew scriptures. It is Strong's H 2930. It means to become unclean, and it is translated as unclean 74 times, defile 71 times, pollute 14 times, uncleanness once. It means to be unclean, to become unclean, to become impure. It means to become or become unclean either sexually, religiously, or ceremonially. It means to defile oneself. It means to be defiled in a sexual way. And that is precisely what Shechem did to Jacob's daughter, Dinah, when he sexually assaulted her and took away her virginity. By having sex with Dinah, Shechem had taken away her virginity. And as an unmarried woman, she was now defiled and sexually impure, since a woman's virginity was her most prized possession in the patriarchal society of that time. No man wanted to marry a woman who was not a virgin. And by sleeping with her, Shechem violated her and he made her defiled. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out unto Jacob to commune with him. And the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it, and the men were grieved. So Jacob's sons were very angry, and they were very wroth, because he had wrought folly in Israel in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done. So Jacob's sons were livid when they heard about Shechem's despicable act, and they wanted to defend their sister's honor, as well as their family's honor. But notice, Hamor ignored the elephant in the room and sidestepped the fact that his son assaulted Jacob's daughter by trying to arrange a marriage between Shechem and Dinah. Notice what transpired as he went to speak with Jacob concerning his son's wish to marry Jacob's daughter. Notice what we are told in Genesis 34, verse 8 onwards. And Hamor, who was the king of the city, communed with them, saying, the soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. I pray you, give her to him to wife, and make ye marriages with us, and give your daughters unto us, and take our daughters unto you. And ye shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade ye therein, and get you possessions therein. So Jacob was already a wealthy man with great possessions, but Hamor, king of the Hivites, tried to appeal to what he thought was Jacob's need for more riches, which was a slap in the face of Jacob, considering what his son had done to Dinah, Jacob's daughter. So notice, he did not speak about what his son Shechem had done to Jacob's daughter. He wanted to sweep that under the rug. He ignored, as I mentioned, the blatant elephant in the room. Back then, it was fathers who made marriage arrangements for their sons and daughters. So Shechem should have approached his father Hamor first before he violated Dinah, if he really loved her, but his immediate reaction was that of lust. Hamor wanted his family and Jacob's family to become one by marriage, which probably would have resulted in Jacob's family being completely assimilated into the decadent and corrupt Canaanite culture. Shechem then interjected to negotiate on his own behalf, as if he was saying that his father was not doing a good enough job of selling the idea of him wanting to marry Jacob's daughter Dinah. So notice, after his father made the initial approach to Jacob, notice his intervention. Genesis 34, verse 11 and 12. And Shechem said unto her father and unto her brethren, let me find grace in your eyes, and what ye shall say unto me I will give. Ask me never so much dowry and gift, and I will give according as ye shall say unto me, but give me the damsel to wife. So in other words, viewers, he wanted not to address the issue at hand, but he wanted to pay whatever it was monetarily so that he could marry Jacob's daughter. And that again was a slap in the face, because the real issue at hand was the fact that he sexually assaulted Jacob's daughter. He did not come to Jacob as a man and ask for his daughter's hand in marriage. He violated her, and then he was now approaching the father, asking for his daughter's hand in marriage, without even addressing what he had done to his daughter. All he was interested in as a wealthy man, being the prince of the country, was to pay some money, whatever that monetary value was, so that he could get Dinah to be his wife. And that was a big mistake, and that is what upset Jacob and in particular his sons, who did not like the fact that he treated their sister as if she was a prostitute. So the Hebrew word translated as dowry is mohar. It occurs 3 times. It is Strong's H4119, and it simply means dowry, a purchase price for a wife, or the wedding money that is paid to her father. So notice, by violating Dinah, Shechem should have paid, quote unquote, money according to the dowry of virgins, because he took away Dinah's virginity, even if Jacob refused to give Dinah to him as a wife. So even if Jacob did not agree to give his daughter to Shechem for a wife, he still should have paid the dowry of virgins. And this is something that God would later codify in scripture so that men would not easily violate another man's daughter. So God later codified this into law to prevent men from violating another man's daughter without paying a huge financial penalty, as can be seen below. Notice what we are told in scripture, and this is later. This is in the book of Exodus and later in the book of Deuteronomy. We are now in Genesis 34. This came after. But the principle still existed back then. Exodus 22 verse 16 and 17 says this: and if a man entice a maid that's a virgin, that is not betrothed as Dinah was, and lie with her, or in other words, have sex with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. He should what? Endow her. He should pay the bridal price. And notice verse 17. If her father utterly refused to give her unto him, which is what Jacob had no intentions of doing anyway, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins. So even if you violated a man's daughter, God is saying here that you should endow her to be your wife. And because you should have gone to her father first, if you violate a man's daughter, God is saying, if the father refused to give her unto you, then you shall still pay money according to the dowry of virgins. Notice as well Deuteronomy 22 verse 28 and 29. If a man find a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed, as was the case with Dinah, and lay hold on her, because that's what Shechem did, and lie with her, and they be found, then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he hath what? Humbled her. He may not put her away all his days, or in other words, he may not divorce her for as long as he lives. And that was the penalty that a man would have to pay. And back then, 50 shekels of silver was a huge sum in those days. Viewers, it must be noted that at the time when Hamor and Shechem came to speak with Jacob and his sons, Dinah was still being held captive in Shechem's house. And we can see this in Genesis 34 verse 17 and in particular verse 26. And when we get there, we'll see it very clearly. So Dinah was still being held captive in Shechem's house after he had sexually assaulted her. So Dinah's brothers were not in any talking mood, because Shechem not only had violated their sister, but he was also holding Dinah against her will. It's quite evident, viewers, from what happened later, that Jacob's sons had made a plan to rescue Dinah from Shechem's house, which they outlined to Hamor and Shechem in order for them to agree to the marriage proposal. Notice what they then said to Shechem and Hamor. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor, his father, deceitfully, because they had a plan in mind, and said, because he had defiled Dinah, their sister. And they said unto them, this is Jacob's sons, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us. But in this will we consent unto you, if ye will be as we be, that every male of you be circumcised. Then will we give our daughters unto you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. But if ye will not hearken unto us to be circumcised, then will we take our daughter, that's Dinah, and we will be gone. So that was the proposition that Jacob and his sons laid out before Hamor, king of the Hivites, and Shechem, the prince of the country. Viewers, from a strategic point of view, this was a brilliant plan on their part, because if the brothers could get all the men in the city of Shechem to get circumcised, then they would be incapacitated and powerless to defend themselves when the brothers went to rescue their sister. Jacob only had 11 sons at this time, or at that time, because Benjamin had not yet been born. And Jacob's sons were young men. So they would clearly be outnumbered as well if they were to go up against an entire city, which is why they needed all the men to be circumcised, because it would mean facing little to no opposition or resistance when they went to rescue their sister who was being held against her will in the prince's house. And I did some research, and as you can see on screen, the AI overview of what happens and how long it takes for an adult to recover from circumcision. And this is what came back. Adult circumcision recovery typically takes 4 to 6 weeks. The initial healing phase, where the wound closes, lasts about 10 to 14 days. Full recovery, including the ability to resume sexual activity and strenuous exercise, usually takes 4 to 6 weeks. And it is a painful thing for a man to be circumcised. And that is why circumcision is normally done to infants. And according to God's covenant that he made with Israel, circumcision was to be done on the 8th day after birth. Here's a more detailed breakdown. The initial healing phase, it lasts from 10 to 14 days, 2 weeks. And this is when the wound begins to close and starts to scab. And the pain and swelling, which is excruciating, should gradually subside during the 2-week period. And complete recovery takes 4 to 6 weeks. And after that, you should be able to resume all normal activities, including sexual activity and exercise, once the wound is fully healed. So when Jacob and his sons laid out what Shechem and the entire men of the city had to do, notice what we are told in Genesis 34, verse 18 to 20. And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. Because remember, Shechem was really in love with Dinah. And the young man deferred not to do the thing. Why? Because he had delight in Jacob's daughter. And he was more honorable than all the hosts of his father, even though he did a very dishonorable thing by sexually assaulting Jacob's daughter. And notice what happened. And Hamor and Shechem his son came unto the gate of their city and communed with the men of their city, saying, so the king and the prince then outlined the conditions to the men of the city upon which Jacob would accept their marriage proposal. Notice what he then said to the men of the city. This is Hamor and Shechem. Genesis 34, verse 21 to 24. These men are peaceable with us. Therefore, let them dwell in the land and trade therein. For the land, behold, it is a large enough land for them. Let us take their daughters to us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only herein will the men consent unto us, for to dwell with us, to be one people, if every male among us be circumcised, as they are circumcised. So that was the sticking point. Then notice what Hamor and Shechem then said. Shall not their cattle and their substance and every beast of theirs be ours? Only let us consent unto them, and they will dwell with us. And unto Hamor and unto Shechem, his son, hearkened all that went out of the gate of his city. And every male was circumcised. Every male was circumcised, all that went out of the gate of his city. So notice, viewers, that both Hamor and Shechem were able to convince the men of the city to get circumcised. And the sweetener was the lure of riches because of Jacob's considerable wealth and livestock. So they were also planning how they could get a hold of Jacob's substance, his cattle, and his wealth. Viewers, the plan that was engineered by Jacob and his sons only involved incapacitating the men of the city through the means of circumcision. And on the third day, when the pain and soreness was most severe, they would enter Shechem's house and rescue their sister Dinah, because they had no intention of giving her to Shechem in marriage. However, viewers, two of Jacob's sons had another idea, which was unknown to their father. Notice what we are then told in Genesis 34, verse 25. And it came to pass on the third day after the men had their circumcision, when they were sore, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brethren, because they were the same father and mother, Leah was their mother. So Jacob's first four sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, and Dinah was also their sister. Because Dinah, as the first verse said in Genesis 34, is that Dinah, whom Leah bare unto Jacob. So they were full brothers and sisters. So notice, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brethren, took each man his sword and came upon the city boldly and slew all the males. So they killed every single man. And they slew Hamor and Shechem, his son, with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house and went out. So there you have it, that Dinah was being held captive, being held against her will in Shechem's house, even up to the point when Jacob and his sons had that meeting with Shechem and Hamor over the marriage proposal. So Simeon and Levi killed all the men of the city, including the king and prince. And this verse, Genesis 34, verse 26, is conclusive proof that Dinah was being held captive in his home after she was sexually assaulted by Shechem. Notice what transpired after they killed every jackman in the city. Genesis 34, verse 27 to 29. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain, and these are the other sons. The other sons of Jacob came upon the slain and spoiled the city because they had defiled their sister. They took their sheep and their oxen and their asses and that which was in the city and that which was in the field and all their wealth and all their little ones and their wives took they captive and spoiled even all that was in the house. So not only did they kill all the men, but they also looted and spoiled the city. So when his sons came back with Dinah and Jacob found out what they had done, he was livid. And notice what he said to the two sons, Simeon and Levi, in Genesis 34, verse 30. And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, ye have troubled me to make me to stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And I, being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. So Jacob was upset that his sons had done this dastardly act in killing every single man in the city and taking loot and spoil from the city, because the plan was never for anyone to get hurt, much less to be killed. No one was supposed to die, because Jacob did not sanction the killing of anyone, and he reprimanded the instigators and perpetrators of this wicked act, Simeon and Levi. And notice their response as they tried to justify their actions in verse 31. And they said, when their father reprimanded them, they asked Jacob this question: should he, Shechem, deal with our sister as with an harlot? So they were saying that he had no right to treat their sister like a whore, like a prostitute. And because Shechem had done that, in their mind, they were justified in killing him, his father, and the entire city. Viewers, it's absolutely clear that Simeon and Levi had evil intentions towards Shechem from the beginning. So the plot to get everyone circumcised was the perfect cover and presented them with the opportunity to execute their evil intentions against Hamor, Shechem, and the entire city. So while their sister Dinah was violated, there is absolutely no justification for what his sons did in exacting such drastic measures. And Jacob never forgot what Simeon and Levi did, because even on his deathbed, he prophesied that he would separate them in the land of Israel as a result. Notice what we are told here in Genesis 49 as Jacob was about to die. Israel's prophecy concerning his sons. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Jacob was speaking prophetically under divine inspiration. Gather yourselves together and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father, because remember, his name was changed from Jacob to Israel. And when we get to Genesis 49, verse 5 to 7, this is what Jacob prophesied concerning Simeon and Levi. And it clearly proves that he never forgot what his sons did to Shechem and the men of that city. Simeon and Levi are brethren, they are brothers. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. O my soul, come not thou into their secret, because they planned it secretly. Unto their assembly, mine honor, be not thou united. For in their anger they slew a man, referring to Shechem, and in their self-will they dig down the wall. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. So that was a prophecy that Jacob made prior to his death concerning his son Levi and Simeon. And when Israel finally conquered the land of Canaan and they settled in the land and they inherited their possessions, notice how the map of Israel looked, and you'll realize that even though you're seeing Simeon here, they were a small tribe within the area that was given to Judah. On the map, you will never find a tribe of Levi, because as we go through the scriptures, we will realize that Levi, the Levites, who descended from Jacob's son Levi, they became the priest of the nation, and they were scattered among all 12 tribes. They were basically based in Jerusalem, where the temple would later be built, and they served as priests. They did not receive any inheritance in the land of Israel, but they only got suburbs, not enough to sustain themselves. So all 12 tribes had to pay a tithe, a tenth of all their farm produce to the Levites so that they could be sustained. So Simeon received an inheritance of land in Canaan, but the tribe of Levi did not receive any land. God was their inheritance, and that is what fulfilled Jacob's prophecy concerning his two sons. Jacob said on his deathbed that I will scatter them in Jacob, in Israel, and that is exactly what happened, because Jacob was speaking under divine inspiration. Levi did not receive any inheritance in the land, while Simeon was a small tribe. Their land was surrounded by the tribe of Judah, and they received a small portion of land in the land of Canaan. So viewers, that brings us to the end of Genesis 34, where we looked at Shechem's abduction and sexual assault of Jacob's daughter Dinah. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and may God continue to bless us as we continue to study his words to prove all things. Have yourselves a great day.